Lesson 9.2. The goal for today's lesson is finding the mean of data sets and discovering the relationship between the mean and the outliers. Most of this will be a review for you, but it's information that when you go over it, it's good to be reminded of it. Okay, so what is a mean? A mean is a type of average, and you have vocabulary here that I want you to record in your notebook. But notice how they take care of or figure out the mean with this data. They just set it up a little differently. You do the same thing, but it just looks a little different here. Here are your numbers of data, and all they do is, just like you do, add them together, divide by the amount of numbers. There's 4 of them. Okay, so then when you add them across, 28, 4 divided by 7. The reason they have that in here, because that's what you're going to see in the chapter, but know that basically it's figured out the same as when you do it. So pause, get that information into your notebook, and come back when you're done. Okay, the mean of your data. Here are all the text messages sent by each person. The mean is adding up all this information and then counting the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, dividing it by that, and your answer is 103. Now you do have to ask yourself, is 103 a reasonable answer? Yes, it is. It's not a middle number, but it does fall between 120 and 90. Right in here in the chart, so it does seem reasonable as far as your answers go. Let's see what we've got next. Example 2. So we're already down to example 2 on page 398. In this one, it gives you the double bar graph. In this double bar graph, city 1 is the darker colors, city 2 is the lighter color, which is the green. To figure out the mean of your data, keep in mind you do have to split between city 1 and city 2. You have to look at 2 different cities. Okay, in this case, you would do all the dark greens, add them together, and this is on page 398, figure out the mean. In city 2, you would add all the light green. So in city 1, the mean is 2.6 inches. In city 2, the mean is 2 inches. And if the question is, which one has the most rainfall, 2.6 in city 1 averages more rainfall than city 1. Averages. Keep that in mind. That's what you're working with, is averages. Okay, for the next part, I need you to figure out the on your own for numbers 1 and 2. Please pause the video and come back for your answers. Your answer for number 1 is 57. Your answer for number 2 is 7.5. Example 3 on page 399. If you take a look at this data for the Shetland pony and its height, all the numbers seem about the same. There is what we call an outlier, a number that's very different from the cluster. In this case, the 28 inches is an outlier. This is still your cluster. This is still the peak, but you have an outlier. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the mean average with the outlier and with the outlier and without the outlier, and look at the differences. If you look in your book, the average height of a Shetland pony with the outlier, this 28 figured into it, is 37.9 inches. If you take that outlier out, it is 39 inches. Now, does that make sense? Well, that's what we were asking ourselves in example 2. Does it make sense? If I were to do it with the outlier, my average would be about right here. Let's put a line there. There we go. Would be about there. No, sorry, I got you wrong here. 37.9. Your average would be about right there. Without the outlier, my average is about right there. Now let's take a look at those two lines. And the question is, does my answer make sense? Well, if I use the outlier, my average is within these 4 points. And look at all the points to the right and only 2 to the left. Average sort of means in the middle. And if I look at this one right here without the outlier, then it more or less is in the middle visually. So the information that they're taking is to put or to not use the outlier. An outlier does what we call skewing. It skews your answer. In other words, it really will change your data. Because there's such a gap here, the outlier will move your data toward itself. But there's only one outlier. So really, does it have an effect on your cluster? No, it shouldn't. It shouldn't. So your answer should be without the outlier. All right, let's see what I have here. Nope. Okay, here's what I was just talking about, is that the mean can be figured out with or without the outlier. In this case, it makes more sense to not use the outlier to get a decent answer. All right, your job right now is to do the on your own. What I do want you to do is build a table or a dot plot for this information and then figure out the answers. In this case, because you have to show me your table or dot plot, please come see me when you've completed this on your own. Then your assignment is in your packet. See you or talk to you in 9.3.